Hangout. So, welcome everyone to our weekly Hangout thingy. Today we're going to do a little talk about politics, right wing, left wing, what's what, and what fits where. And unfortunately, Semis was here with streaming, but he had to go. So it's just the five of us, and let's see who else will join. And it's going to be a little bit, off the cuff as usual, because I'm not the greatest one when it comes to screening or scripting my Hangouts. So, hey, did we just lose Carlos as well? And we just lost Carlos. We did. Fucking hell.
Well, hey, you know what? Unscripted is usually better because the jokes are fresher.
Yeah, that is true.
And you're not actually controlling what everybody says.
Well, I don't want to control what everyone says, obviously. Hell, Okay, but let's talk about left wing and right wing politics, because we see in America going, and this is more or less happening in Europe as well, the bullshit that certain left wing politicians and ideologues are pushing away, that everything else is right wing. What is left wing? What is right wing in politics? Who dares?
Can I try?
Go ahead, Saint. Go ahead.
Now, the common answer that will be given for this, I think the most common answer that would be given for this on the internet is that left and right is specifically a categorization based on economic considerations. So right wing would be more capitalist, left wing would be more socialist. And there's a spectrum there.
Yeah, there's also part of conservatism that can be part of right wing. But yeah, that's roughly...
conservatism is generally more capitalistic, at least in the West.
In the West, yes. But yes, okay. Now, that's a fair enough definition. Anyone wants to add or detract from that?
Well, in my experience, the problem with left wing versus right wing is left wing has too much empathy and the right doesn't have enough.
Okay.
That seems to be the real problem, because if you have too much empathy, it can get very dangerous, as we saw with, like Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin.
But they're not
like
right.
That.
They're left wing.
Exactly.
That's what you have too much empathy.
Okay.
Well, can you give an example of the right not having enough empathy?
Yeah, because that's clear. I'm curious about that one.
Well, their hardline stance on no abortion.
That's religious. That's not really right or left, because there are left-wing people against abortion as well.
Well, here's the thing.
That's a kind of selective empathy. That's empathy more for the child than for the mother.
I can sympathize with that. Yes, that is true. But more to the point, especially in the West, or in America in particular, religious and conservatives tend to kind of sit in the same boat. So
that is true. There is. I will add to that. We lost somebody.
Carlos.
Yeah,
okay.
He may be having some trouble with his computer.
There is, in fact, a secular right and a religious right. And I think that the secular right is less empathetic than the religious right.
Maybe.
I think that the secular right is generally more individualist and more egoistic.
Actually, I should bring up the fact that Jordan Peterson seems to do some decent explanations on the problems between left and right.
Oh, well, could you elucidate on them for us?
I'm trying to remember. He was saying like, oh, God damn it. I watch these videos all the fucking time, and now I'm sitting here like, brain fart. He brings up how the right-wing people are more industrious, and left-wing people are more creative, I guess, and have more empathy. But he also brings up.
Go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to say he brings up the dangers of. He gives good examples of how the left and right work together to make things work smoothly.
Yeah.
But then he also explains the dangers of being too far one way or the other.
Well, a philosopher who I really like, a 20th century philosopher called G.K. Chesterton, put it in a way similar to this. The left exists to make sure that we have a never-ending stream of problems. The right exists to make sure that those problems are never properly solved.
Yeah. I'm not really sure if I like that. How do you call it? Amalgamy? Terrible with English. Sorry. No, I'm not really sure if I agree with that. What we do see, however, analogy. Thank you. Fucking hell, my English is terrible today. But what I do agree with though is that on average, left tend to be more creative and feeling based, and right tends to be more conservative, capitalistic, if you want, and solution.
Creative complaining, lazy solutions.
Well,
the way that I think of conservatism is I think it is directly in the middle. Because what is conservatism? You're attempting to conserve principles that currently exist.
Yeah, conservatism can also be seen as a form of traditionalism. Trying to.
But I think that traditionalism and conservatism are separate and distinct.
I don't really see the distinction that much. I mean, I can understand that they are separate because they have other overlapping but also non-overlapping parts. But I'm not really sure if I would call them very much distinct.
I don't know much about either two, but isn't traditionalism generally centered more in culture and conservatism centered more in economics?
No.
But economics is basically culture-driven as well. So that doesn't.
The way that I think conservatism will be different in every culture because the principles that animate a culture, that animate different cultures, will be different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Attempting to conserve the principles that currently exist within a culture will be different depending on the culture that you're actually in.
Yeah, but that culture is derived from traditions.
Actually, I think the simplest explanation for left and right is like a mom and a dad. Mom's there to be sympathetic to the kid's needs and blah, blah, blah. Dad's there to teach the kid how to walk on his own. And when you go too far one way or the other, that's where you get into really fucked up territory.
I really like that.
Like a mom who's too sheltering, too empathetic is going to ruin a kid forever. And a dad who's too overbearing and too do it on your fucking own, you know, that's
forever. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that one too. It's a really good analogy. Thank you, Magnus.
And you ruin the kid in different, distinctly horrible ways.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, the mom and dad system is supposed to be a way of checking and balancing each other, so the kid gets just the right, sort of, education as to how the world works, and when to be sympathetic and when to be hard-assed,
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get all that, then that's where things get really fucked up. If you get too much of one and not enough of the other.
Well, yeah. If you look back in history, and I'm going to go back, let's say a nice 800,000 years ago, it was quite common for children to be with their mother. Of course, their father would be there somewhere too, but on average, they would stay with their mother till a certain age. And boys from that certain age would then spend more time with their fathers, start learning a trade, etc., etc., etc. Depending on the cultures, that could be anything from 7 years to 12 years, though.
What time frame did you just say, Modwain?
I said 1,000 years ago, yeah. But it's well before that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a safe number.
Well, pre-industrial revolution time, yes.
Yeah. Well, no, because if we look at after what a lot of people call the golden age of Europe, 1600, you already see differences because there the education of children is going more outside. Where
that's right.
Hold on, wait. Which golden age? The first one or the second one?
Yeah, that's the problem with the golden age. It depends on where you are. So that's why I'm saying around 1500, 1600.
We had 3 in Portugal, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, so not the 1940s golden revolution. Okay.
Yeah, not that one.
1970 what?
We had firstly
I
the
said
Romans.
1940, sir.
We had firstly the Romans, then the beginning of the Moorish, but they didn't reach. They invaded us, but they didn't stay here. So the Moors, the Islamic Enlightenment in the south, and then again the Renaissance. So we had fucking three. Haha, we rule.
Yeah.
Well, but America had the golden age of comic books, so fucking ha.
That beats it. Yes, you win, sir. You win.
But anyway, until a certain time,
Spider-Man beats the telescope any day.
but it depends on Spider-Man, though. I mean, in all fairness,
Batman beats rock and roll.
I mean, if you're going to say Peter Parker, yes. But
I'm partial with Superman. I've always liked Superman.
yeah,
But you don't like Miles Morales?
no,
No
Who
one
the
likes
fuck
Black
is that?
Spider-Man.
no.
He's the replacement for Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe, right? And
No, well, it's an alternate universe. Fuck that. I don't go for alternate.
No,
universe.
but
Ultimate.
the problem is,
Ultimate.
but I'm going to get sidetracked here. But I'm going to do this really.
No, go on. Modwain.
The problem with Marvel, and they are actually recognizing that they're doing this, is that they're fucking up because they are trying to be diverse. And hi, Rin. I can hear myself coming back over your microphone.
What? What were you saying?
You're echoing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But hi there.
Hello, Rin.
Hello.
Back to Marvel. Marvel is going into the diversity bullshit, and they're actually losing loads of customers. And, well, that's because of the customers. But if you want to have a black superhero, create a black superhero. Don't make a white superhero suddenly be black. And there are black superheroes that are
Miles Morales,
well worth.
War Machine.
Well, as War Machine, yes, but as War
Yes.
Machine, his character was War Machine. He's not Iron Man 2. He's War Machine.
Well,
He's
the way
War
that I
Machine.
look at it is different. If you take a white character and you suddenly shade it a darker color, you haven't changed anything about the character. There's nothing wrong with that.
But you have, though.
No, wait, I do have a problem with that because it's kind of like the moment the character is black, you can't make it whites again. Because once somebody is black, it's kind of like it's ours now. It belongs to us, and how dare you make this whites again? You know, imagine the type of reaction you would get if you turn a black character white, and how everybody would react. It would get
they did
really
that.
negative
They did
reaction.
that, actually. They did that, and the Green Lantern. I mean, they didn't take the character of John Stewart and make him white. No, they replaced him with someone else, and I forget what his name was. But
Kyle
John
Rayner, you
Stewart-
mean?
Yeah, he came after John Stewart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle Rayner.
Well, I'm trying to remember the order they came in. Hal Jordan was the first one, if I remember right, and then
Yes, Hal Jordan was the first.
they started introducing like Guy Gardner, John Stewart, and then Kyle Rayner, and it's like, okay, but these are all different characters with their own identity, which was cool, you know.
Yeah, but at the
if you
time
make-
they were just replacements because I think Hal died.
Guys, can I be the spanning the bloody well-oiled cogwork in spanners and stuff? We have sort of gone off topic a bit.
Yeah, let's go back to politics. You're right.
Exactly. This is honestly, this is fucking. I honestly apologize. We should
why I
make a
need you
stream
here,
just
mate.
on this because this.
I would totally be down for a stream about.
Okay, you know
This
what?
is too fucking good for that. For
Yeah.
yeah.
Next week's stream, comic books.
I'm
Exactly.
down.
Honestly,
Next week's stream.
I would love to have that.
Yeah.
But now, I'm going to present
next week's stream.
a view.
Comic books.
Carlos, before you go, there's something
Yes.
I actually wanted to add on to
I'm
what
going.
Modwain. You had brought up Marvel before, and I just wanted to end with this. You're right. Marvel is starting to cut back on their diversity, but they were taking away the worst possible message from this whole debacle. They are looking at it and they are saying they don't want diversity at all. Comic book readers don't want diversity, period. They don't want it at all. They don't want women in lead roles. They don't want it at all. They're taking
Which
this.
is bullshit.
Yeah, and they're
it's
going in
bullshit.
a full 180 direction. It's completely the worst idea. You are if you alienated your reader base before, now you're going to alienate them worse because now you're going to start calling them bigots.
Yeah.
How can you not like?
I'm not going to respond on it. This is going to be next week.
Next week.
This is
Next
going to be.
week.
Oh
Next
yeah.
week.
Well, they're looking.
Okay.
It's strange. They're looking at this from a kind of capitalistic perspective, and they're coming at it at the worst possible
Let's
angle.
save
It's
it
really
for the-
strange.
Sorry,
It
Saint.
really is.
Anyway,
Let's save it
back
for
to
next week.
politics. So we're talking
Well,
about
no, but that
the left and right.
Politics, left, right.
actually
how
that
do you-
did have a lot to do with politics, though.
Yeah, it has to
Yeah,
do with
but,
identified politics, but not
that's-
political politics.
We're having comic book stream next week. No more comic books from this point
No more
forward.
comic
You get comic book
Exactly.
muted.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm going to present you a case of how to avoid extremism at all costs. The Portuguese example. I will always use it because it's a case study. Since from 1926 to 1974, Portugal was under a dictatorship. It could have been classified slightly as a fascist dictatorship, but I would expect more as a it's not cooperative, but it's a more of a communal type dictatorship. It had some characteristics where they had communal. We called it gremios, which is a collective, but it was still a capitalist dictatorship. Brutal, absolute brutal. It has nothing to do with the theory of what a dictatorship or a fascist dictatorship is. The practice and the theory are totally different. That is something I was thinking about today. Now, after we had the 43rd anniversary of overthrowing that brutal dictatorship. Now, our politics in Portugal, we have all the left and right leaning parties. Our supposedly most leftist party are the Greens. It's common in every country, and they are called the leftist bloc. They are our most extreme. They are more left than communism because we have a communist party
Do they have any relation to Black Bloc?
as well. No. It's nothing. It's nothing to do with that. It's just the fucking name that they call themselves.
Technically speaking, there's nothing more left of communism.
Technically, absolutely.
Your Green Party is more left than your Communist Party, but your Communist Party is not all the way far left.
Well, our Communist Party leader still worships Lenin.
Your Communist Party is having a hard time getting a stiffy, ain't it?
Yeah, but that's not the point. This is the spectrum.
Labour Party in
This is
America.
the spectrum. Yeah.
The Labour
This is the
Party in
spectrum.
England, they're still in favor of Stalinism and Leninism.
Exactly. But the spectrum that I'm trying to show you guys, which then when I finish my short monologue as short as possible, our most far left party, which is the Greens. Then you have the BE, the leftist Bloco de Esquerda. Then you have the Communist. Then you have the Socialist Party. These four parties are ruling Portugal now. It says it is a majority bloc, but it's ruled by the Socialist Party in a minority government with the sort of a loose, what do you call it?
Butthole?
No, yeah, well, you know what I mean. Loose, loose interpretation. They are sort of allied against the right. Now, the right are the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats. The fucking Christian Democrats are the heirs to our dictatorship party. Now, if you grab them and put them in say, even in the UK, they would be all of those parties would be centre.
Yeah.
Literally centre. Slight centre to the left, slight centre to the right. They would be left, completely right of the most of what's the most leftist, the most moderate left party in the UK. I can't remember. You have the Labour Party, which are fucking out there.
The Tories.
Well, yes.
The Liberal Democrats, they would be more centre than the Liberal Democrats.
Well, the Tories are more central too, because they are. Even the Tories are left, even though people keep claiming they're right.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
Left.
Yeah. The Tories would be more or less what. But our parties, all of our parties, will still be more centre than the Tories.
Are we using my definition of terms, left and right, or are we using some other definition?
No. The general political spectrum of left to right. We have extreme left, Maoist, communist one side.
So economics.
Economics and also ideologies in that.
Yeah.
But
that's strange.
Yeah. Why do we have that here? Because we are so afraid. Portugal is so afraid. The voters are so afraid of a dictatorship again, left or right, communism or fascism, that we will not vote.
Stop.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to call you out because you said left or right. Fair enough. Communism, fascism, but fascism is also left.
Fascism is what? Yeah. Technically, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Fascism is so left. It looks right.
Yes. I know that. I know what I mean. But let's get to the.
Let's get to the question.
I don't want to invoke Godwins, for fuck's sake.
Let's get to the question of the stream at this point. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I understand.
Still good descriptions of politics.
Mussolini, who made the fascist party, he had leftist tendencies. I know all that shit.
Leftist tendencies. He was fucking left.
Yes, he was. Yes, I know. Yeah, but do you know what the post World War II definitions of those terms?
Yeah, that's the funny thing though. Post World War II,
exactly.
suddenly everything that was Axis is right.
Nazi.
And
I have a question. Yeah. And this is more dedicated towards the stream question. Are left and right really the only choices you have?
No.
Then there's your answer. It is not a good description of politics at all.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, we're being pushed to believe that it's going to be a left-right dichotomy. And you have to be on the left, because if you're right, you're wrong.
In America, it has been a left-right dichotomy, because that's the only two parties that actually have any sort of weight in this.
Left and right tells you nothing.
You know that the Democrats
left and right. Left and right tells you nothing more than the economic stance of the person in question. Absent of economics, left and right are not a good description of what a person believes.
No, indeed. Because
absolutely,
people seem to think that social security, which is social, therefore socialistic, no, it's social, but social security is a left thing. But what a lot of people forget is that social security already existed during the industrial age. Okay, it wasn't as far as it was now, but people were already trying to do things to make their society more stable. Even right-wing capitalistic societies wanted to have stability. So there were already parts of social security in the world. Not as far as we've got it now. We've gone over the top. But it's not a left-wing thing. But now we like to think it is.
Yeah, our dictator Salazar, he introduced the old age pension. That's a social umbrella type thing.
Yeah.
That's what you would attribute to a left-wing type economic party, a socialist party type thing. But no, Salazar introduced the pension for the old age pension. It was only old age pension. He didn't have unemployment. He didn't have any other subsidies and shit.
Carlos, does that mean we should call it socialist security?
I reckon we could call it right. No, because it was.
Carlos, yes. Is agriculture technically social security?
Agriculture is social security, absolutely. Exactly. Yes.
You can take a look at what I put in the side chat.
No, I know what you mean, man.
What did you want to say, Smurkus?
Is the original one.
I didn't even want to say anything.
You know, off topic, there's something I want to say. Industrial agriculture is the destruction to food tastes.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Industrial agriculture is possibly the single absolute worst bane a chef can possibly suffer.
Sorry to
Shit,
go dictionary on your ass, but dictionary says fascism is right.
I ate chicken roast. Well, I had a chicken type stew.
One moment, one moment, Carlos. Let me hear Smurkus again.
Huh? Oh, I said, sorry to go all dictionary on your butt, but dictionary says fascism is right wing.
Yeah, but that's the funny part, though. That's how well, it's not nice to say, but how brainwashed we are.
Huh.
Fascism is called to be right wing, but if you look at what fascism was, it was very, well, society based.
I believe that everyone calls fascism right wing because we view the left as the more positive side. Therefore, everything to the right must be negative. Everything we don't like must also be right wing.
No, the idea of separating people into left and right is a good way of categorizing them, but it doesn't actually tell us anything about what they believe. Fascism is basically there are two different forms of Hegelianism. You have fascism, which is the main branch of Hegelianism that people typically refer to as right. Then you have left-wing Hegelianism or Marxism, which is a mutation of Hegelianism. And people think of Hegelianism divided into fascism and Marxism as left and right, even though that's not really a good way of describing them, if we're talking about economics.
Dark magician roasting us on how we understand politics.
What? When? Who?
But that's the thing, though. I mean, and we've been told by our media and by
yes,
our
Modwain, we're just told by a weeaboo.
The thing is, we've been told not to think for ourselves. Magnus, you're echoing, mate. Are you on the toilet?
We're just not gonna find out.
Anyway, so but we've been bamboozled by our history and by our politicians, and the thing is, can we name any real culture that can claim to say, okay, you were really right wing?
I think the right left wing are just labels that have been placed on different political views. It could be conservatism towards total the libertarianism is not the right word. What's that word?
You're damn right, libertarianism isn't the right word.
Exactly, I know. I understand, SaintClare, what libertarianism means today. I'm just, you know what? You guys know what conservatism means. Conserve, the conservation of a status, not status quo, of a. It is difficult to
common core traditional values of a particular culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Conserve your culture, conserve lots of things. That's conservatism. Now you have the opposite of that, which is disparaging everything. I don't know the word for it. It's not obviously not libertarianism. No, I won't go that way.
The fact that both an anarcho-capitalist and a Christian traditionalist can both be considered right wing is an example of why it's not a very useful term.
No, that's
exactly
kind of what I wanted to point out as well, because if we look at Western history for the last 200 years,
if we look at the joke history, if we open a comic book and
no, but if we look at the serious history, if we look at the First World War, the Second World War, we haven't really seen any right-wing societies. Yet we claim that we have. I mean,
Well, society, well, the kind of Anglo world, if you want to call it that, the English-speaking world, has, and to be fair, the rest of continental Europe has had a progressive viewpoint since the Elizabethan age.
yes,
That's
well,
when that began.
even before that, because if we look at the tribal societies of pre-Roman, even the whole community thing, because this is basically what it is. Left is very much based on community. The community thing was already a big deal. It's always been a big deal because that's the whole tribe thing.
That's true, but what I'm talking about is wanton progress. And that's what you had beginning with Elizabeth I. You had a society that believed that they were on the crux of something great. And that's the kind of mentality that is persisted over the past 500 years or so.
I see that mentality pretty much everywhere.
But it's kind of funny because if we look in the Western world,
it's a part of Anglican culture, and the entire Western world is heavily influenced by Anglican culture.
yeah, but it's not just Anglican. I mean,
Manifest destiny, anyone?
but the thing is, this is true for just about everything in the Western culture. There's only one culture in the world that constantly keeps moaning on how we need to be more left.
Yeah, and we really should do something about the Indians, but we can't.
The thing is, why are we? This is. I'm sorry. The reason why I brought up this argument was, I wanted to do this talk was because if we look at America, Donald Trump won presidency. Okay, is he left or is he right? Well, a lot of people claim he's right wing. But is he?
He is a screaming Cheeto living in a falling White House.
Yeah, I view Donald Trump as being more censored because he has voted Democrats a few times in the past, and he has donated to the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. It's like most people vote left, sometimes vote right, sometimes.
So basically, Donald Trump's more of an independent than anything else.
Yeah,
So
he's
what you're
more
saying
independent,
is
censored. Yeah.
what you're saying is Donald Trump is no different than the common man.
Well, he's
Yeah,
richer,
because I agree with that because I voted for Obama twice, and this election I
sorry.
voted for Donald Trump. You know, I just vote whichever. I don't plan on voting left or voting right. So I just vote whichever.
You vote for whoever appeals to you, ideas and opinions wise, at that current moment, at that current time. That's how everyone does it.
Isn't that what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do, though?
And that's what you're supposed to do.
Well,
But
some people stick to the left because the whole entire family is to the left, and vice versa. Some people only vote Republican because their whole entire family is Republican, so they stick to tradition.
yeah, as I grew up in
Same. I mean, I only went to church because it was, the rest of the family went to church. That's what we did.
I only talked about like George Bush was because my dad would always talk about George Bush, so that's what I did. It's kind of what most younger people do my age. Unfortunately, they never really drop that mindset, or they dive so hard into that mindset that they don't learn to think for themselves. And that's one of the biggest problems.
They let God do all the thinking for them.
Yeah, in that case too.
Trying to get this camera working.
It's on.
It's working. We can see you.
Technically, Donald Trump is ideologically a Democrat.
Democrat, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Democrat from the 90s.
He's a Republican.
One thing, I saw some tweets and some news and said, did Trump really threaten to restore this fucking act, which I can't remember of, was repealed in 1999,
Hey, Nick.
or
Nick.
about the
Welcome
banks,
to it.
the separating the commercial and the something bank. It had something to do with banks. I don't know the details. Just
Well,
tweets.
And since you guys did bring it up, I figured I should show you guys what I got my stepdad for Father's Day for the farm.
Would you get him a penis?
I'm showing it.
Oh, yeah, that one.
One moment, I'll broadcast it. So, there
It
you
says, no soliciting. We are too broke to buy anything. We know who we're voting for. We found Jesus. Seriously, unless you're selling cookies, please go away.
go.
Well, I do like my Thin Mints.
It is good, yeah.
I love some
chocolate
Smurkus
chip
myself.
It's sort of like saying I like chocolate.
Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person alive who doesn't understand why Girl Scout cookies are good.
I don't think anybody understands. We just like them.
No, I mean I don't like them. I don't understand why everyone's infatuated with them. I don't understand.
Because they're tasty.
Yeah, I don't care
And
for
they- and-
Girl Scout cookies
When
either.
else? Let me ask you this: when else in the course of your life, adult or otherwise, does someone bring cookies to your fucking door?
That
I
is
still
that is
do
for
not like
healthcare.
Girl Scout cookies.
You
I
didn't
would order
you didn't
Cookie
even
Man
ask.
cookies.
You didn't even ask for them ahead of time. You're just minding your business. There's a knock at your door, and someone wants to, sell you. It's like, hey, would you like some cookies? Well, of course, I'd like cookies.
I would
Yeah.
willingly agree that is a possibility if I didn't live in Florida and they didn't walk up to the door in fucking heat radiation suits.
Well, and Nick, since you brought it up, I also have to say they also set up shop outside of truck stops, which is my weakness.
Well, they set
don't
up shop
disparage
outside
the Girl
medical
Scouts.
marijuana
God damn it.
dispensaries, too.
See,
So
no,
what now?
he likes them because they said the reason they set up shop outside the truck stops is because Magnus gets the cookies during the day and he gets the mommies during the night.
Oh, there you go.
Magnus, I'm curious about something. Do you actually own a home?
No, why? I own a truck.
He's a truck, man.
I didn't think so, because if you did, I would say why.
Well, I mean, I'm only home for maybe 2 or 3 days every 3 or 4 months. So
Right.
what would be the point of owning a home?
Well,
My friend-
you got to deliver my dildos.
Yeah, see.
My friend's dad drove a truck, and my uncles, 2 of them drive trucks, and they all own homes, but their family lives in them, not them.
Well-
Shall we try to get this back on left-right politic thingy again?
Right. I think Nick deserves that.
I'll be with all respect, I'm not sure how many times we can beat someone over the head with this is not a good description of current politics.
Well, no, but yeah, current politics is a problem all by itself. But the thing is, we are being told that going in a certain direction, I mean, voting for Trump, oh, you're right wing. Voting for Marie Le Pen, oh, you're right wing. But how right wing are these people?
Extreme
What
right
is?
wing.
Well,
I think that there are flaws to the political compass test, because I do think that if you're a Christian, you would be pushed to the right wing, because there were questions like, well, are you a Christian? Do you believe in astrology? How well do you trust horoscopes? And it's kind of like, can't a person be a right-wing atheist though?
well, those,
Or-
I'm a conservative atheist.
And more than that, though, too, a friend of mine is actually
A rare breed.
a friend of mine is actually a pastor who's very left-leaning, and this is somebody who has their their degree in divinity, and they're studying for a master's in philosophy now. And he's even said too that within, like, at least his sect of Christianity, as it was, and I can't off the top of my head remember which one it was, but he says that there is a significant political divide between different schools of thought within the theological community about, it basically boils down to the classic sort of, is it the exceptionalist Christian dominionist type of thinking, or is it the, well, this is what Jesus really said kind of thinking?
Well, of course, whether or not you believe in a god doesn't give us any information about your economic beliefs, doesn't give us any information about what kind of social order you think would be best, doesn't give us any information about the type of government that you prefer. It doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah, but
Well, and hang on. I got.
Guys, not all at once.
One at a
Go ahead.
time,
One at a time.
please.
And that's the very problem with the political compass says. It's like it's gay marriage immoral. It's premarital sex immoral. It basically asks us Christian religious questions, whether this or that. It's immoral pertaining to Christianity, and that is supposed to determine if you're a right wing or left wing.
Well, when it comes to things like that, I'd say that a lot of that also though does have to do with the fact that social conservatism, absent of religion, whether or not religion inspires it or not, social conservatism is typically it's pretty much right wing, and social conservatism up to a point really does sort of it sort of defines the notion of do you believe that your personal morality should in one way or another impact the rights of other people, and and to what extent, because then you get into the debate about what is and I'm using the term civil law here in terms of law in a civil society, not necessarily tort law. But the question of is law in a civil society, is civil law meant to be based upon morality as it's described most commonly through religion, or is it meant to be based upon different principles like sort of Enlightenment principles, perhaps libertarian principles of live and let live?
Well, and
Well,
I have to.
I would say that libertarian principles are based on morality, and so are communistic principles.
Yes, I know, but what
Okay,
kind
well-
of morality? Because a right-wing morality is very often the more intrusive version, which dictates
Is that true though? If we
Okay,
look at
do I-
let's use the term conventionally then. Let's say that conventionally. That is
Well, I would like you to define your terms, Nick. What do you mean when you say right wing?
well, even using the terms right or left wing themselves are usually just very general descriptors. In the West here, we typically, because we even like compared to many other cultures, our most conservative thinkers, right, are liberal by their definition. By many European standards, by our standards, many European conservatives are still liberals.
Yes.
So it does depend on where you're talking about and who you're talking to, and it does seem that in general terms, though, usually based on like the Judeo-Christian fundamentalist set of moral principles, that which is conservative, or in this case right wing, it typically falls on those more intrusive moral convictions that people believe ought to be mandated upon others by law, like the question of gay marriage. Is it anyone else's business what contract two consenting adults enter into? Not really by any standards outside of rather strict conservative and typically theocratic standards.
Well, if we're going to speak of left and right in terms of what you say, that I think precludes any notions of economics being placed into left or right, because of course you can be economically capitalist and be socially left-wing or socially right-wing, or you could be socialistic and be, or economically socialistic and be socially left-wing or socially right-wing.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so I think what you're speaking of is generally referred to as the up-down spectrum, not the left-right spectrum.
Yeah, well, I mean, Yiannopoulos put it well too. I mean, one time when he even said that social conservatism in the U.S. is largely dead. I mean, it's still out there, and lots of people still hold to it. But by and large, in terms of it being a force, a force unto itself and genuine political power, it is in many ways losing power as we go forward.
I don't. But here's my
Oh, for fucking shit now! Wow.
People, Rin speaking.
Okay, but my problem here is that how come, like, if you're religious and you believe that if you could force your religion on others, that's really right wing, but there are atheists out there that if they could, they would outlaw religion. How come, atheists who want to outlaw religion altogether isn't viewed as a far left? Because I didn't see any questions like that on any political compass test.
I'd say that also comes back though to the party dynamics here in at least the states. I mean, because we've got, throughout most of the Western countries throughout Europe have a plethora of parties, and they have different systems in which coalition governments are made. Here we have strictly one of two choices. You either have the Democrats or the Republicans, and they've traded over time. But it's always kind of come down to one party means sort of forward-thinking progressive liberalism, and the other party is, you know, conservatism in whatever manner they can define it in both senses. And so when you had, for instance, the rise of the evangelical movement, that was a largely socially conservative movement, which oftentimes married many of its sort of theocratic notions to more ardent nationalistic principles. And in those, they found themselves largely moving over towards the Republican Party, who over time, rather rapidly actually, came to even define themselves as conservative, and then went about defining conservatism according to their terms, right up until libertarians really started making inroads and trying to say that's not really conservative, because that's a liberal principle.
Right. There were people such as Barry Goldwater who were incredibly angered by the rise of the religious right in the Republican Party. In 1981, he actually wrote about it specifically. He was very distressed at the fact that religious fundamentalism was infecting his Republican Party.
Well, the point that I've
go ahead.
Thank God.
Well, the point that I've been trying to bring up for the past 5 or 10 minutes is, you know, we're always so concerned with what left wing and right wing is. We never really stop to concern ourselves. And this is something I'd actually like you to explore, Nick, if you don't mind, is why people end up on either side of the spectrum. Because I mean, we do it with
it's usually moral arguments.
Why?
Well, I don't really think there's a moral argument to it, because, you know, that's like the way we're always concerned with why when it comes to like shit like serial killers. But as far as where people fall on the political spectrum, we just kind of seem to ignore the why. Okay, why is this person this far left, or why are they this far right?
It generally has to do with who they've been watching and what type of moral arguments that we're making. It always tends to be they're listening to somebody who is saying this particular thing that is happening is immoral and you need to fight against it.
Okay, but let me say this. Should people even be too attached to a political party? And the reason why I say this is because I was watching this old video where this guy who is the leader of BET, and he was able to talk to Donald Trump about issues going on in the Black community. And should people like Black people or whatever stick to the Democratic Party or any community, any group, whatever, whichever your group is, or should you just focus on whichever issue that's important to you? Kind of like how the March for Science wasn't really about science. The March for Science was really just them bitching about Donald Trump. It was very politicized. Why not focus on the science instead of caring whether you get help from the left or the right? As long as you get help, who the fuck cares? Or
because people view political.
Care if it's left or right. If you could get what you want, why care either way?
People view political affiliations like sports teams.
A bit like that, yeah. I'd go as far as saying actually that I think and this is something I think about and write about quite a lot. Actually, it comes down to this zeitgeist. Really, it comes down to orthodoxy, especially too in a time when, you know, in the past, the biggest impediment to, let's say, a well-informed public had to do with education, literacy rates, absence of the channels of communication. Now we have an overabundance of them, and at the same time, we are just surrounded by and inundated by information at all times, and that's on top of being inundated with just a busy lives in order just to make it just to get by. With all of that, when people want to step forward and claim an opinion or make a statement or even just come to understand what the questions of the day really are, the first thing that they're almost always confronted by is it's almost like evangelists. They're ideological evangelists who step forward to say, I have all of the answers, and all you need to do is just listen to these arguments which really hook you. And then from there, Yeah, it's sophistry, and from there, I will, we will explain to you all of the other answers, even when you come to points in which they're either unrealistic or in terms contradictory. It's not all that.
You're breaking up a lot.
F5.
Yeah, I was about to ask if that was just me that he was doing that for. But, the saddest part about it is I come from an age when it didn't matter what your politics were. I could see older members of my family conversing with people they knew, and they could differ greatly on politics, but at the end of the conversation, there wasn't any of this, get the fuck out of my house, I don't want nothing to do with you anymore. It's, yeah, politically they're an idiot, but I still like them.
Well, I mean,
I don't understand how that changed so much in the last, I'm going to say 15 years.
Morally speaking, there isn't a big amount of difference between your standard conservative and your standard liberal. It's when they become infected by these toxic ideologies that cause them to despise one another that you begin to run into problems. If you ask your standard, center-right conservative in America or in Britain, what do you believe is moral? What do you believe is immoral? And you ask the same thing of a classical liberal, you would get very much the same answers.
Well, you also
almost exactly, I would say.
I think also too, it's so the divide has been. It comes back to this zeitgeist, this orthodox thinking, because once an enemy is identified, right, the opposition to that enemy solidifies and then almost festers, and that's even why when you get into the SJW anti-SJW thing, you find reason.
But that's basic in-group out-group dichotomy.
Exactly, and it's effectively the same thing. But I think the problem comes that once one goes from someone who entertains ideas to a true believer, to somebody who is absolutely certain that this is the right way to go, then those who fail to see that way are either fools or evil. And when you have that kind of dichotomy, every utterance from an opposition or for someone who fails to see things the way you do really only serves to reinforce that in-group mentality.
Well, Nick, actually, I was going to say, it's even gotten to the point where the in-group, out-group goes with if you just even utter the phrase, I'm not really sure that's a good idea.
Yeah. No, that's the thing too. Entertaining different ideas. It's we talk about the center left and center right now, which in older conventional terms, as was said before, that's sort of what we might regard as conventional liberals and conservatives, who by and large they're not altogether as far apart as they might think. But the fringes of these movements, the ones who become so supercharged in their ways of thinking, become unable to entertain ideas outside of their own and unable to accept that perhaps those who see things differently may even have that different opinion from a point of good intentions.
It is also I noticed that I can hear myself.
It might be me. I'm mute.
Conservatives and classical liberals, generally speak, conservatives and liberals, if you got rid of the aesthetics, there wouldn't be very much difference between them. I think it's very much the same with the fringes of these groups. If you look at what are commonly termed as SJWs, and you look at what is commonly termed as the alt-right, if you took away the aesthetics, statements that they make are sometimes indistinguishable from each other. If somebody makes a statement, it's difficult to know whether or not that person is progressive or alt-right unless you take a look at the aesthetics of that particular person, what their banner has, what their name is, etc.
It's the classic. I mean, does anyone else here remember a couple years back? It was on Reddit. There was a game, Stormfront or SJW, and they just took out keywords, and then you had to guess: is this a Stormfront statement or is this an SJW statement? And that was a tough game to play.
Yeah, but in all fairness, I'm going to say something now, because this is basically my main problem with the left-right dichotomy. In all fairness, Stormfront and SJWs are both basically the same. They are not right-winged. They are left-winged. They're both going from an in-group, out-group mentality, but their in-group is slightly different. But they're not
I don't think that really explains it.
Well, you guys brought up that Stormfront or SJW. Didn't Sargon of Akkad actually do a couple of videos on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he definitely did. And I
Like,
mean, it's.
young
I
stuff
mean,
from a long time ago.
yeah. Well, I mean, no. He put the video out a long time ago. But I mean, I did a video called Bad. I think it was called Bad Penny, and riled up a lot of the alt right, because I basically said that, like, white nationalists of their ilk are. I mean, they and their regressive counterparts. They're just two sides of the same bad penny, and they did not like that one bit. But it was really true, because it's
true.
about authority. It's about power.
Absolutely. Have
And
you read?
so-
Nick? Have you ever read Hegel?
Not in depth. I'm woefully underread, to be honest with you.
Actually, that
I had
video you brought up, that Bad Penny video, I got a kick out of that one, I have to admit, because I knew it was going to piss somebody off.
I had a conversation today on Twitter with someone on Antifa and what their tactics were. I said that they basically employ, quote unquote, I know it's not the correct term, fascist tactics, but we'll use it just to say that they use the right-wing tactics, but they have left-wing ideologies. And the gist of the conversation on my part was both the extreme left and the extreme right, and I've done this before, using the horseshoe theory thing, and I've emphasized many tweets that the horseshoe on my part has joined. Both the extreme left and extreme right are basically one. The tactics, not the ideology, by the way. The ideology, they may have different. They have opposing differences, but their methods of what they try to achieve are exactly the same.
Well, it's I think of it not exactly as a horseshoe, but kind of like a gravity well.
No, I see it as a circle. They've joined the circle.
Yeah, well,
You joined the horseshoe, you form a circle.
Think of Edgy Sphinx for a moment. I want you to think of a gravity well, a massive center of gravity representing moderates.
Black holes won't.
You will have you have people revolving around the center. Most people you have will be revolving around the center, but occasionally you have these satellites revolving very far away. And what you have in the case of Edgy Sphinx is, well, he reached a point where he was a progressive, and he reached a point where his belief in that particular kind of system crumbled. His belief in left-wing social theory crumbled, left-wing economic theory. At least.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
and he sort of flew towards the center,
okay.
kind of like a planet. And the thing about it is, if you fly towards the center too close, you're going to be flying off completely in an opposite direction.
Not necessarily.
If you don't crash into the center, you're going to be wrapping around it and flying off completely in an opposite direction. That's the way I look at it.
3 years ago, I looked up to shit. Yeah, I now thinking. I looked up to Rachel Maddow, that other one from NSBC. That what's his name? Shit. Never mind.
Keith
Olbermann.
Keith, thank you. That guy. Yeah, that guy.
Oh.
I looked up to them. Yeah. Do you see what I looked up to them because I didn't like Fox News. I still don't like them, but I was really all my information of news in here in Portugal and all that shit was just basically regurgitating MSNBC, CNN, CBS, and all that. Rarely Fox. And I said, shit, yeah, the fucking Republicans are evil and all that shit. But then I said, wait. I joined Twitter, and I started Twitter 2 years ago, and it sort of opened up the counter arguments. that pulled me to the absolute center. I've done, by the way, you can cheat in those political compasses. I've gone from extreme left to extreme right to moderate left to moderate right. I've done all them. You just, it's easy. They're all cheatable. Spoiler alert. Yeah, spoiler alert. They are all. You can crack them. They're easy to crack.
Frankly, I mean, for one thing, the questions are oftentimes really poorly written and very ambiguous. And
They are.
I mean, and the other thing too is, I mean, like, you know, let's go with the question of abortion, for instance. I know plenty of people who find abortion personally abhorrent, but don't think that it should be banned. You know,
exactly.
It's
one
of those things.
But there are plenty of left-wing people who are against abortion as well.
Yeah, and there's plenty of right. There's
and there are right-wing people who are like, yeah, okay, if you want to do it.
For a long time, I've been, and it's kind of hacking into some geeky fandom stuff here, but I've been a fan of Doctor Who for a long time, and I always loved how when he'd say, you think of time as a linear progression of cause and effect when it's more of a big ball of stuff, right? The thing about
I see it as a net, but that's me.
If you take
come on, Nick.
If you take the question of ideology, if you stop trying, I actually had an argument with Brandon Morse because he wanted to leave the Overton window. It is the quadratic grid there and return to the left-right binary spectrum there. And I disagree because I thought it needed to go further because it's almost like a multi-dimensional sort of quantum mess because you can hold positions that are inherently contradictory. You can hold positions which defy how you're generally pegged ideologically. And you can find yourself like the center, left, and right effectively, cease to exist because really what it is it's the complex totality of your ideas comprised into what is effectively just a big web, and it's not a neat web. It's like when you give a spider LSD. We've all seen that.
I think the best way of defining people would be what their main philosophical influences are. For example, my main philosophical influences are Aristotle, Giambattista Vico, and oh God, what the fuck? What's Adam Smith? That's his name. You can define what I believe based on those three philosophers.
As an archaeologist, I would say that archaeology, when I was studying it, were basically Marxism. Honestly, it was. I studied all of my basic shit. The person I most admire is Leonard. He's a Cohen, South African archaeologist. He wrote The Social Theory of Archaeology. I can't remember his first name, but he's a Cohen. God damn it, he was a pure Marxist, and I didn't get influenced by it. I don't know why, honestly, but archaeology when I was studying was pure Marxism. But what I want to point out too is that shit. I lost my point of view. Sorry, guys. Go on. Forget it. I'm going
to try to say something. Go on then, Carlos.
Go on. No, go on. I'm drunk.
I'm going to try to say one thing though, because the whole thing about the left and the right wing dichotomy within politics is basically in-group, out-group, as we've mentioned a few times before. But if we look back, certain governments that we now consider right-wing weren't right-wing at the time. So it's the label of whether you're left or right can retroactively be applied. And what's even worse of this is that this, on average, seems to be done by, well, the ones that are prevailing, which is usually how history is written, but apparently politics is written too. For example, Hitler was right-wing, but he was a socialist. He was more left-wing than America was at the time. Hell, he was more left-wing than America is at this point in time. Yet still, people consider him right-wing. Don't get me wrong, people. I'm not trying to claim that Hitler didn't do anything wrong or bullshit like that, because he was an idiot and he did some horrible things. But what he wasn't
actually
was right wing.
Don't even argue with that. That doesn't require.
Modwain, I have to bring up, he was a failed liberal arts student.
Well, yeah, that
I mean, something I think is worth pointing out, though, too, is that when it comes down to definitions of left and right and how people like to use them, let's look at how a lot of like serious defenders of hardcore ideologies usually act. When you point to the Soviet Union to a modern communist, they tell you that's not real communism. That was state capitalism. It didn't work. And then at the same time, though, to your most ardent free market, libertarian,
It's not real capitalism.
Exactly. That's crony capitalism. When corporations take over in the absence of regulation, that's just crony capitalism. That's not pure capitalism. And this is really this is a big reason, I think, that that these sorts of definitions, when they're taken too seriously, really disserve any kind of discussion. Because if you're using them as general descriptors, just very general ways with an understanding that there's a lot of wiggle room there, and you're just
I actually had a long argument with an ANCAP over the concept of intellectual property. ANCAPs don't believe in intellectual property. They don't think it's valid capitalism to sell ideas, which I think is very strange.
Especially, yeah, because if there's a market for something and you can sell it, then does that not mean it's valid capitalism?
Value is essentially determined by individual human beings, and if an individual human being values an idea, you can sell them that idea.
Yeah.
Well, this was largely the idea behind my my stabs at sort of at least trying to introduce some kind of general understanding of centrism, because everyone's like, oh, you're a fence sitter, you won't take a position, this and that, or it's wishy-washy. My thinking as it's evolved over time, because I mean, you say you point to philosophers who you've read who've helped you come to define your understanding and personal ideology. Mine has been derived largely from mixes of reading various philosophies and ideas, as well as observing them in practice, and also being out, in the political field, because it wasn't all just campaigning. A lot of it was just long conversations over scotch. And with those, I routinely kept finding that, for instance, in the union world, where you'd expect to find a lot of socialistic, very hard-leaning left people, I met a lot of people who were more conventional classic liberals, who were strong capitalists and all of that, and didn't want to see anything like public health care systems, and didn't think public transport was exceptionally important. My own understanding, my own approach to things has been more of a sort of utilitarian perspective, one which asks, does a given policy work to address a given question in a given society? And if it doesn't, are there ways in which it can be modified so that it can do so, or would it be better to take a different policy and modify that one to fit correctly? Instead, the way most people approach it is, I would rather society suffer from questions or issues going somewhat unaddressed, as long as the policies in place align with my philosophy, than see a functioning society that incorporates elements from that which I disagree with.
Well, that's why I never really understood the whole left-right thing, because it's just like you're never fully left or fully right, usually.
Yeah.
So in some shit you're left about, some shit you're right about.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure, Carlos would agree to that.
But the thing is, if we look at
matter, no, just do what you just vote for what you think would be good for your country.
But the thing what we see mostly, and this is something that we see in the last few years as well,
good for you?
people talk about which politicians you are supposed to follow or which politicians you are supposed to ignore, then all of a sudden the left-right dichotomy becomes important again. This is what we're seeing in America now. We see Antifa on the rise because they feel that the left needs to have their champions, apparently.
Yeah, and we are too polarized as a nation, where it's just hard to have a discussion. And I mean, it's even hard to play devil's advocate these days. Like, I mean, you would even get held for playing devil's advocate, even if you say so. Even you're saying, well, I am playing devil's advocate, but I think this is where the other person is coming from. And people will still just start having this knee-jerk reaction and gets on your case and just go berserk, you know? And if,
Well, they're not
how are we
interested
going to accomplish anything if we can't have a real conversation? If it's just going to be autistic screeching instead of a real civilized, calm discussion with people whom we disagree with.
Right. This is why I'm kind of losing faith in the dialectic, because it's you're getting over time. You're getting fewer and fewer people who can actually be convinced by argumentation, and you see this especially online. Like we have conversations like this, but most of us are going to walk away with the exact same opinions we came in with. That's a fact, and no matter how good the arguments are, no matter how logical one can be, you're not going to convince the other side most of the time, because the other side is so entrenched in what they believe. Yeah, dogmatic, that's a good word for it. Even if they're completely secular, you can be dogmatic in your secular beliefs.
And I think that's
Absolutely,
true, that
yes.
we live in a time where we just cannot have a real dialogue. That's really unfortunate. And this is why, you know, you see Antifa going on the rise and just using violence as an answer, when really this, to me, it shows just how far we've descended in society when we just can't have a conversation, let the best arguments win, because that's how the atheist community did it on YouTube. The atheist community would just challenge a bunch of Christian arguments, and I think that really helped, you know. But
You know
now,
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
Do
AJ.
you know why? Do you know why we can't have an argument anymore? We can't have a conversation anymore? Because there are scary things, and we need to fight against those scary things.
Well, on the opposite side, though, I mean, AJ actually just came up and asked me. It was a good point. I mean, you said, you know, in an argument, you know, there's no changing minds between two people who are genuinely entrenched. But the point, you know, behind an argument, especially in public, it's never to convince your opponent, but to convince anybody who might be looking on. And I've actually had people, when I've had arguments, come to me afterwards and say that, you know, well, listening to that argument and seeing the weakness of that position and the strength of the other one, I did kind of change my mind. I mean, it's not your opponent who you're supposed to be convincing in a given argument or debate. It's anybody who's listening, which is the real reason we have them.
but
Well,
hardly,
there's a second reason.
wait. Hardly anybody wants to listen these days. Hardly anybody would want to listen to an
Well,
opinion
we got
different than theirs. People would rather report you. People would rather block you. People would rather censor you. People, look at what people did to Milo Yiannopoulos and let's say Ann Coulter. It's like, we don't want to hear this. Let's shut it down. So it's kind of like, how could you even persuade the onlooker if nobody really wants to listen to a side different than what theirs?
And this is
Is that
something.
really a problem in
It's a little
education?
bit. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of a. It's a little bit hyperbolic to say nobody, but less than it used to be.
The thing is that if we look at people trying to silence others from speaking, this is more of well, I hate to say the word left in this case, but it's more of a left tactic than a right tactic, and this is something that you only see with certain left-wing ideologies. So not even all left-wing ideologies.
Well,
this.
but I should bring up the fact that I'm one of those people that I could be your opponent in an argument, and if you convince me, I'll come up to you like Nick was talking about, and like, well, you changed my mind.
Yeah.
But I think that requires a certain level of intellectual honesty in modern times that is very severely lacking.
Well, it is indeed about intellectual honesty, and one of the things I like, don't forget, and this is something that a lot of people kind of seem to forget, but people on average think whilst they're talking. So whilst you're talking, you make up what you wanted to say, and you try to measure up what you're saying if it's still true to you. So we don't think up concepts in our head and then try to explain them. Whilst we talk, we think up the concepts that we are trying to explain.
Well,
so if you're honest about what you're saying and what you're hearing, you can then say, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. Or, well, but yeah, you come up with this, but this is my counter argument.
Well, but that's the thing, Modwain. I've had people give me that run around and that bullshit about, oh, well, you're just not going to change your mind because you're too set in your ways and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, no, actually, I'm not changing my mind because what you said sounded so fucking ridiculous that it would be stupid for me to change my mind. But apparently they don't get that. But they don't seem to get that part.
No, but that's the thing, though, and you have people who will. I mean, this is something that we see more and more as well. That's why you see people shouting people down, because they don't want to go into an argument, because you might actually come with a point that they didn't think about, and then they have to rethink their position. But a lot of people don't want to rethink their position because their position is their safety. Unless, of course, they themselves come up with a reason why their position might be wrong.
Yeah, I do think that people think that their position is moral and righteous, kind of like the abortion thing. The pro-life people view it as moral and righteous to keep the baby alive, while the left is kind of like it's pro-choice because of morality. Like, what about the woman? What if she's been raped?
Right.
What if the baby has birth defects? And I mean, they definitely love the rape arguments, even though when you look at percentages, I think it's zero. I'm not sure, but I think it's 0.03% of women had an abortion because they were raped.
Well, but
it's similar to the arguments for circumcision when you think about it. What's more important? The safety of the child, or the choice of the parent? It's the same argument.
Well, how many people? How many people in here besides me have had to rethink your entire point of view several times in your life?
I have, to be honest.
I have. Because I am willing to listen to different people.
And honestly, one should make a point of doing that regularly.
What Carlos said earlier is that he's gone through several different stages where he believed this, okay, then he believed that. And he's oscillated. He's gone through some different intellectual changes, different philosophical changes, and I think that's a good sign of somebody who's actually willing to read things and learn things.
I just realized I'm a white supremacist.
My point is,
let me finish. It could also be a sign of somebody who's very easy to convince.
No. As a scientist, because archaeology, apart from being a humanities, is science. I will accept anything that has a verifiable evidence backed up by it.
So not geometry.
Geometry as well, of course. That's
geometry doesn't have evidence backing it up.
But geometry is still correct. I will change.
I like throwing. I'm just busting your balls. I like throwing that at people.
Exactly. I will be convinced by verifiable evidence, and I will change my mind if presented with verifiable evidence.
Yeah, because
I will change my mind.
Because I used to be very, very left wing. I used to be very much to the left. Then when I hear people in the rights, of course not all of them. Some of them are crazy. But when I hear somebody from the right making a very good, solid argument, I am, willing to change my mind. And, so like, even though I answered the political compass as honestly as possible. And it's just that I went from to the very far left to close to center. Like now I'm just like I'm pretty much to the center now, because I am willing to listen. If you have a good argument, a very good argument, and I can refute you, I am willing to listen and change my position.
I remember you once made a video. This is how I got introduced to you, Rin. you made a video talking about who was it? The Amazing Atheist, and the fact that he made too much money for your liking, and you were angry at something he had said, whilst making too much money, and you and I talked about that, and
I
think I used to be the same way. I used to be somebody who was very socially left wing, particularly economically left wing, and I'll admit I have gone through a couple of changes in my philosophy. 6 months ago, I thought that Thomas Hobbes was the smartest man who ever lived. I don't really think that anymore. I don't really follow his philosophy as much anymore. I don't believe in it as much. But that's an example of me having changed my opinion just recently, my worldview.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have my word. I don't think I did a lot of. Hey, let me speak for a moment. I don't think I've ever gone through the whole life worldview change thing, but there's a lot of issues where I've changed my mind on through the years, and that's why, like, these days I'm very interested in hearing from veterans and all that stuff. I used to not really give a crap, but nowadays I'm like, it's interesting, and we should take better care of them once they get home. But it also ties into the whole society.
I definitely care about veterans.
I just actually have to bounce out because I got to get recording done. It's good talking to everyone again now.
It was nice.
I would like to talk to you about philosophical subjects sometime, if that's okay.
Yeah, hit me up on Twitter, and I mean, like, again, I'm woefully underread, but I can hold my own. At least.
I'd like to know what your philosophical influences are.
Actually, people, let me take this moment, because considering the time, I think I'm going to call it quits for tonight's stream as well. So we just may as well all quit together.
Yep, that's fine.
So anyone have any last words that they want to share on the topic?
Yes. Go on, Nick. You first. Go on, mate. You first.
Nick already left, apparently. Oh, I was hoping to give everyone a chance. But okay, Nick dropped. Anyone else?
Okay. I was just going to say... No, go on, Rin. You first.
Responding to SaintClare, it's just that, like, when you grow up on the left and you get in this echo chamber and you don't hear other people's point of view, you could just get so ideology caught up in your worldview. And that is where I was when I made that video response to the Amazing Atheist. I was just I was just in that echo chamber, and I just, wasn't really familiar with different points of view. So I grew up to turn out to rectify that by trying to listen more. And that's part of the reason why I took that video down, is because I want to listen more to what other people have to say and just listen instead of having this ideological knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, that sentence went on forever, but I'm only kidding. I'm only busting your rose. But I went through a similar I guess development period. I grew up watching Jon Stewart and Louis Black and Stephen Colbert. I loved Stephen Colbert when I was a teenager. And that's what I kind of grew up with. That's the kind of philosophy I grew up around. And when I was 18, I started getting into George Carlin and Christopher Hitchens, and I became influenced by those two. And when I first started making YouTube videos, I made socially progressive videos. I made videos similarly to, you guys know who Kyle Kalinske is?
Yes.
Kyle Kalinske was my main influence, my main inspiration to start making YouTube videos, and I made videos similarly to what he makes now. My opinions have changed since then. So yeah, it is true that people can listen to arguments and change their minds. I still think that that's less common now than it used to be.
Well, yes, it is something that is dwindling because people are defending their position more because they see letting go of their position as losing.
Yeah, which makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Yeah.
Well,
They care
I
about. They care more about public shame than about fact and truth.
Actually, I disagree. I think that they view their side as moral and righteous, and the other side as amoral. So, if you are a pro-lifer, then a person who's pro-choice will view you as very amoral because you don't care about women who get raped. And if you're pro-life, you're not going to listen to a person who's pro-choice because they don't care about the children. I do think people get caught up on what's morally right and what's morally wrong, that if you disagree, you could be viewed as basically a devil worship, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Whose shot is it next?
Yeah,
It could be your turn.
who wants to
I'll
say
just-
the next thing?
Okay, I'll because I have to go to bed in about 2 minutes. I'll end my bit. This is what I think. Morally, extreme right and extreme left have the same views of life. For example, Stalin had the same. The communism had the same view of, for example, abortion, women's rights, and all that shit as the most conservative, let's say, right-wing ideology you can have. I've said this I've said it before. The horseshoe has joined and become a circle.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I would go further in that. They actually have the same major philosophical influences.
Exactly.
They ultimately derive from George Hegel.
Well, yeah, or from Marx and Lenin and
Marx and Lenin derive
and
from
Thomas More and who were those capitalistic extreme conservative philosophers and Descartes and all that. Yeah,
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sort of rambling here, but I've never been influenced, possibly to my benefit, from any deep philosophical teachings. I've always sort of taken everything that I've read with a pinch of salt, because I am a skeptic. I question everything.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I question everything.
If you
honestly.
question everything, but you think there is a truth to statements, then you're not a skeptic. It's not what skepticism
No,
is.
there's no truth. Truth is only found in mathematics, and that's it. There are possibilities.
You're a rationalist. You're not a skeptic. You're a rationalist.
I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in a lot of things. That skepticism is to question. That's yeah. So you question.
No,
I question.
philosophically, that's not what skepticism is. That's what it's turned into because people use the word that way.
But yeah, that's getting into that's getting into the semantics and all that shit. I am
This
a skeptic.
entire stream is based on a semantic argument. Is left and right a good way to describe?
Of course it is. That's why I'm trying to be a bit rational here. No, I'm not. I accept. Yes, I know SaintClare. God damn it, we are on the same side.
I love you, Carlos.
Of course, man, we are ultimately, obviously, man. Ultimately, we agree. Skepticism, the skeptic word itself, is being misused a lot. I want evidence. I question anything that's not that I can't get evidence with. That is my skepticist view, not the philosophical view of skepticism and all that baggage that it has behind. That is my personal thing. So, in concluding, the left, the left and the right are basically terms that are being thrown around today. They've basically separated economics with societal. You can't do that. Communism is both a societal and an economic force. Capitalism is an economic force, but conservatism.
No. Capitalism also had a social impact.
But that's the impact. But the philosophy behind it is basically conservatism.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. Because for a
I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
Conservative values are ultimately, well, conservative traditional values, Western values, are ultimately distributist in their nature. They're not capitalist and they're not socialist. They're distributist.
Yeah, and capitalism.
I am corrected by you guys that know more about that than I am. I am purely an archaeologist. That's my main force. I can argue with you guys about Neanderthals and such. So that is my final word. Thank you.
No. I mean, I'd love to hear your point of view as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just that.
No. Exactly.
When you say capitalism isn't about society, it has a very strong societal influence as well.
Yeah, but I still think it's purely economic. Yes, there is societal impacts of it, but it's still
more economic. I'll grant you that. But for a capitalistic society to succeed, it needs a strong market base, and that's society.
Which is, but the market based is obviously. I'm not saying it's not, but it's still basically an economic concept. It's not barter, for example.
No, it's not. Well, it is, but it goes deeper than that.
No, it's
That's
not.
exactly what
barter,
it's based off of.
Barter is one thing. Barter is the exchange of equally valuable goods. Well,
value
capitalism
is determined by individual people. That is capital.
Yeah, that is capitalism. And it is barter.
It's capitalism. If that capitalism is not by individual people, it's by the societal norms.
No,
because a piece of paper is worth because society deems a piece of paper
because lots of individual people have determined that paper has worth.
Society.
Yeah,
society.
Yeah, but
you're talking about society, and it doesn't mean anything. You're talking about lots of individual
people, because every person with a dollar sign in his hand, with a note, believes in the value of that note.
If everybody in the United States today began believing that dog shit would be worth $1, then today in the United States, dog shit would be worth $1.
Yeah. Do you guys realize that that the concept of what we are talking now does not work in hunter-gatherer societies?
Agriculture. I love you, Carlos.
That's the thing, though. It doesn't.
Thank you. So it's not individual. It's societal.
No, it is individual, but it's about the amount of individuals.
Money and the concept of worth,
value,
not trade, not barter, but symbolic concepts of money, and is purely capitalistic, agricultural, societal, and any other thing that does not involve tribal.
You want me to post the meme again? Because I will.
No, you don't have to post a meme again, man.
No. I understand. I understand what you're saying, Carlos, and I.
You know my position of the two society, hunter gathering, and post hunter gathering. I know you guys know what my position are. I don't hate it, but I prefer the pre-agricultural society.
But you already have concepts of money even before capitalism exists.
No, because it was not a symbolic as money is. Money is a symbolic notion.
You do well, yeah. The way we use money now, it is in the Western world, it isn't backed by gold anymore, because when it was still
trading a basket of a basket for a flint knife is not the same as trading a basket for a piece of paper.
And then trading that piece of paper for a flint knife.
Yeah, it's basically it adds another level.
But no,
Because
you wouldn't be
The
tracing.
only reason things are valuable is because we say they have value.
yeah,
We
No,
determine
it
they
would
have
not
value.
be. It would not be the same because you would not trade a basket for a piece of paper and then trade for a piece of flint for
okay.
a knife
So
blade.
would
You
you
would
still
get
be okay?
the piece of paper and buy the basket and buy the flint.
No, but would you still
It's
be okay
different.
to say then? Okay, we don't have a barter system anymore, but we haven't had a barter system for a very long time. But as intermediate,
Not a long time. Shit,
I'm
no.
done with this conversation. Goodbye.
See, man, it's very recent that we eliminated the barter system. Shit.
not
Here
really,
in
though.
my great aunts and my grandmother would barter in neighboring Spain.
Yeah, but
We called it contraband.
I know, and that's also a form of barter, and barter never really went away. But at the same time,
Yeah.
even during the Roman Empire, you had coins, you had
Of course,
money.
no, I'm not saying it's not the same. Do you see the distinction? We had barter to historic modern times, but economics, coins, and a capitalist system is purely a post-agricultural, post-societal, post city-state, post. God, it's you have the tribe, the chiefdom, post-chiefdom society.
Well, maybe I have to think about it more. Maybe you're right. But I am going to call it night because I am noticing that I have a problem following what you're saying because I'm getting too tired.
Yeah, same with me, man. I have to go to bed because tomorrow I got to get up at 6:45.
Smurkus, do you want to have anything to say?
Well, I'm kind of trying to find veterans, preferably from the latest war, to come and have a chat with me on the street. It's not going so well so far. I thought I'd mention it, and if you know people that want to talk or
if anyone knows
and can talk about it, hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah, if anyone knows veterans, I unfortunately I don't know that many veterans. I know one, but we don't really talk a lot lately.
I wouldn't be surprised with how often people use their credit cards. I wouldn't be surprised if paper money would slowly disappear.
Oh, true that. It probably will.
Yeah, I mean, people are using their credit cards a lot more these days. Like, if I don't have my card with me, then I don't buy anything at all because for me, I don't carry any cash at all, period. So I could see paper money disappearing in the future. And if you wanted to donate, like nowadays, you could go to Walmart, and if you want to donate, you just select how much money it takes from your card. Do you want to take $5 from your card or $1 from your card? It was just take money from your card, and to me, that is more convenient than carrying cash. And we all know that people would just donate a penny or a nickel or a dime anyway. So it seems like we're moving to a direction where if you don't have a card, you don't have money.
Okay. Yeah, that's true though. I think we are going into a more digital version of money. Anyway, before we get started all over again, I am really tired, so I'm not going to do that. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Thank you, the ones that left us already, SaintClare, Magnus, and Wizard of Course. And I hope to see you all next week when we have a good talk about the market of comic books and how Marvel is basically fucking up their own company.
I'm sorry I didn't come earlier, though. I wish I came sooner to this conversation because it was a fun and lively conversation.
Well, thank you very much. Anyway, I'm going to try and get to stop the broadcast. 1, 2, 3.